Hello. I'm going to do this in English because my Spanish is not so good and my Catalan is even worse. So my name is David. I'm one of the 4 founding members of Teenage Engineering. How many people here have heard about Teenage Engineering? Some? Yeah, good. I'm gonna talk about how we deal with design, and also thanks a lot for inviting me here. Real fun to be here. And show some of the products we've done, other projects, and talk a little bit about where we came from and how I ended up here on this stage. This is our new office for Teenage Engineering. We're now 45 people, it says there, so that's probably true. It started like this 9 years ago. We were 5 people, and we had a dream to build a portable synthesizer, the OP1, and this was our first product. It looks like this, and we basically did all ourselves, hardware, software. We did a website, we started selling it, we figured out how to do production in Asia, and we didn't really know what to expect, and we're very, very happy with the response we got. It still sells more than ever, actually, and it's been a lot of people using it. I really like this quote from Justin. It's really, I think this captures a lot of what we try to do, because we're a great fan of his music, and he seems to like our stuff a lot. So we have this kind of mutual fan relationship, which is really nice. Where we kind of feel that we do something and then he does something even better with it. And when you get that kind of thing going, I think that's really what makes it fun to do the things. I also just want to show this in relation to the tragic events that happened. As a fellow Swede, we ended up here, which we didn't expect when we started out, among some other nice products. So after the OP1, we decided to do something else, because we like synthesizers, but we want to have like a broader range of products. So we did the OD11, and that is a speaker. It's a wireless speaker, and since we're Stockholm-based, we're neighbors with Spotify, so it was easy to talk to them. And with the OP1, the idea was kind of to change how you create music, basically just by taking the good ideas from the past and putting them together in a new form factor. With this, we wanted to change how you listen to music, because we felt suddenly there was all of these new streaming services and online music, and everybody was listening through these kind of crappy laptop speakers. So we wanted to bring back good listening sound. We were quite confident on electronics and the computer-related stuff. We didn't really know about acoustics. So this is built on a 70s model that was popular in Sweden. And we got in contact with the Stig Karlsson Foundation, and they helped out with the acoustics. And that was really helpful. It's super tricky to like figure out how a bass port works and airflow and stuff like that. The digital stuff we can handle. So we did that together with them, and it turned out really well. We do wireless stereo, the thing that Apple just managed to pull together with their speakers. But we felt also that the product was a little bit distant, because it was sitting there like an object in the corner. So we did one more thing in this project, the OR1. It's modeled after a Swedish snusdosa. It's our tobacco product. It's actually exactly the shape of that, if you know what that is. It's a controller. It does play, pause, volume. But we felt that the tactile part of listening to music was very important. One of the key features on all our synths is the tactility. It's a physical object you can touch. And with this, you can suddenly touch the music. And that felt really important and interesting to us. Technically, this is a BLE remote, so we added MIDI to it, so we're exploring other ways to use it for musical purposes as well. We also did some other stuff early on that never really materialized. This is an electric bike. We did that before the OP1. That was probably way too early. There wasn't like any real electric bikes around. I still think it's a nice project. Now maybe we can do it, but now others are doing it. I think maybe we shouldn't be doing electric bikes. Others do it, but it was fun. And I think as a company, we want to explore these kind of things. Another thing we explored was the studio system. Most of what we do has an audio angle to them. And this is light for studios, because when you dim them, they're silent. Most other lights make a buzzing sound when you dim them. And plus, I think they look real nice. We have a few at the office. It's not a commercially viable product, unfortunately, but I think it's a nice project anyway. We also like fashion or clothing. So this is Jesper to the left, our creative leader, and to the right it's Ann-Sophie. She has her own fashion brand and also works for H&M and Cheap Monday. They're old friends. So we asked her to do some workwear for us. It's actually what they're wearing here in this image. And she said, yeah, sure, we can do that. But then maybe you should do something for us. And previously our products has been like 800 euros or dollars or something like that. So we had kind of this in mind, that you go in and buy a pair of jeans and you buy a synthesizer. But then this is probably more realistic. They wanted this to retail for $49. I think it ended up $59. But it was very a good exercise for us to do something in that price range. And the reason our previous product was expensive wasn't that we want to be elitistic or anything like that. It was just we put so much into them. And here we got a chance to try to do something that was very, very affordable. And this ended up being a range of 9 products right now. And in terms of numbers, this is, of course, our biggest seller. They basically do one thing each. It's like a band. You can pick the drummer and the bass player and maybe one more drummer if you like, or something else. We also done a number of collaboration. And now this next slide might be tricky if you work with design. So it's all the logos of some of the companies. It doesn't look that good together. This is the first project we did under the Teenage Engineering name. It's a singing choir. To get some sense of size, this one is like maybe 2 meters plus. And these are small. And they all sing one part of a dynamically composed choir song. So it's both spatial and real time. And it sounds really, really nice because they get a flavor because of the different sizes. This was displayed at the Swedish pavilion in the World Expo in Shanghai. And it's for the vodka brand, Absolut, that now is owned by Pernod Ricard. So I think it's still in Stockholm or France. We did a camera for IKEA, the world's cheapest camera. It's just a PCB and cardboard. We done these. for III, a Danish brand. And this is typically, we're doing industrial design, and the inside is done by the company we work with. This is for the Berlin-based Impossible Projects, that now I think bought the Polaroid brand. This is a hotel in Stockholm. They wanted a flip-dot display. And this was a case where we like to explore that technology, and got a chance to do that through this. So we have one at the office as well. This is Fredrik, one of the first day when we moved. Last year we worked with China for the first time. We worked with a company called Raven. They were bought by Baidu. Baidu is usually referred to as China's Google. And this is a smart speaker. It runs Duer OS, which is a Chinese AI assistant system. And we did the industrial design for this and helped out with the production setup. It features a removable dot matrix display, so you can remove that, and that's a standalone functional unit. So you can talk to either that or the base station. And when we did this, we also had some other ideas floating around. And this is in production. You can buy it in mainland China if you like. It doesn't really work outside China because of different things. We also did this, R. The other one is called H. This is R. This is a 6-axis robot. It has the same display. What's interesting with this is that since it can move, it becomes it has the possibility to express emotions. You can have it fold down, you can raise up, it can look at you. And we feel that this shape is very interesting because it's not at all looking like any kind of animal and human, but it's still very easy to get emotion into it. This is only in prototype stage right now. It would be really funny to make this into mass production and see what really can be done with this kind of product. We're doing right now a collection for IKEA called Frekvens. That means frequency in Swedish. It's due to be out next year sometime, next summer I think. Other things we're doing now is the OPZ. That's our next upcoming synthesizer. It looks like this. One of the things that's interesting with this is that it doesn't have a screen, because we believe that most people already have a screen. So it connects to your cell phone and use that for display. That also means that you can use it to do visuals. So as much as sequencing audio, you can sequence visuals. I haven't really seen that being done before, at least not in a standalone unit. And it feels like there's something magical happened when the visual and the audio is so tightly synced. Because normally that's running in two different systems, and there's a little bit of different things going on. Now you can actually do that on the same sequence data. So it's going to be very interesting to see what people do with this. It's going to be released this summer, August 1st, I believe, in New York, together with MoMA and online. So that's a few of the things we've done so far. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we think about things and when we design this. I'm a programmer by education. Since we were such a small company in the beginning, everybody was doing a bit of everything. Right now I work a lot with new collaborations and new ideas. And do things like this. And when I talk about the kind of two sides of this, maybe if you had a cell phone in the 90s, you had one of these from Ericsson in Sweden. I think this is a very technical driven design. They have nice long antennas and maybe some little curve here, but otherwise it's pretty much you get what you need to get and not so much else. And I think they had like 40% of the worldwide cell phone market at the time. They don't anymore. They don't even exist doing cell phones. So that didn't really work out. There were some others coming. For example, the Finnish brand Nokia that also focused on the look of the phone. And they kind of ended up here on the other scale of the spectrum. And this didn't really work either. I don't think, I mean, yes, there are Nokia phones being made now, but it's not by Nokia. The brand is licensed out. And nowadays, this is the perception of a phone. I'm not sure if this is better. I think definitely there is room for something else. But yeah, that is one way to look at the different sides. For example, the inside. We like to make the inside look good as well, so we add kind of stuff internally. I don't know if anybody ever sees it, but if someone sees it, it's good. There is actually under one of the CPUs a phone number to one of our employees. But then, of course, we also work with the outside. And when we did the OP1, there was a lot of discussion about how to fit these encoders. And this design, which is the final design, we had to add 1 millimeter in height because it was impossible to do otherwise. But that was a tough decision that took a long, long time to do. But I think it's in that area where you kind of have the two worlds meet that the really good stuff happens. When you're not sloppy and just do something because it looks good or it's technically easy, you really find the intersection where it works together. I never worked with automotive, but I think what happens here is actually quite similar to what happens here. It's a lot of work that needs to be done. The only difference is here, there's probably a lot of rules that you need to follow and quite strict guidance on what you can do and not so much room for improvisation. Here, it's basically make it fun, make it sound good. That's the rule. And that's, of course, a lot of freedom, which is nice. People like freedom, but it also makes it really tricky to make the right decisions. Here are some screens from the OP1. Can you see what you don't see? There is no yellow. Yellow is not allowed anywhere on that product. It's an arbitrary decision, but it helps. On the OP Z, there is plenty of yellow. For the OP1, we have this kind of raster-like vector or vectorized raster graphic. That is because the screen is an OLED, so only the pixels that are lit up uses power. So for battery reasons, it's really good to do that kind of stuff. It also looks nice. On the OPZ, we have a completely different screen. So then we're using solids. And also we're using Unity to render the graphics, so we can use 3D. I mean, we don't want to use full-on game-like 3D, but we can do 2D in 3D. So some of the decisions we make are based on what's actually happening inside the product. We also work a lot with that it should sound like it looks and look like it sounds. Usually there's different people doing graphics and audio. So for example, I've been doing a lot of the DSP stuff in the OP1, and Jesper perhaps is doing the graphics for that one. and now there's different other people doing similar things. And when you put it together and it works, it becomes really strong. But sometimes it doesn't work. So we have been doing many versions before we end up with this. So it can be completely different graphics. Sometimes even the graphics comes first, and then I have to make a sound that sounds like what it looks like. And I've heard comments when I've been doing something, and suddenly people are like, "Oh, it sounds so much better now. What did you change?" And I'm like, "Nothing. It's just got the right graphics now." It's also really interesting to see how people use. If you have this kind of lever here, people don't really care where it's at. But if that would be a number, which is usually in a prototype stage, it's like, oh, you need to hit 49.2 because that's what I want to have, or it needs to go to 100, or if it goes to 200, that's confusing. And to have people really listen and feel, it can help a lot with having the right interaction in terms of the visualization. For this one, we only have one pixel. We have a LED. So one of the interactions this has is a startup sound. And we want to make clear when we do a new upgrade to this. So we're always doing a contemporary upgrade sound based on our current products. So for example, if we would release an update now, it would probably be an OPZ sound playing. And as I said, this one was very much constrained by the price. And I think these kind of constraints are really, really helpful. Sometimes we make them up, sometimes they come by themselves. I think otherwise it would be just too difficult to make something that feels like a product and has some kind of unity. So given that, how do we know what we do is good? I really don't like this kind of stuff to ask people for opinions. I think you need to be pretty much done before you ask people. Otherwise, they would say, "Oh, you're missing this and that," and like, "Yeah, I know, we're not done yet." So it's not really helpful. On the other hand, you need feedback. I mean, it's naive to think you know everything yourself. So we need to leave some room for changes. So, for example, the dot is a key combo that's actually never got used. It was kind of left as so that might be handy if we need to add something. And I don't actually think it ever will be used. So we tend to like try to do our product almost done, then get it out to people, and then hopefully be able to squeeze in the changes. And another thing that's interesting to think about is to think about the product as kind of an icon. So if you can pixelate it or make it into something that's easy to recognize in any shape, that's probably a good sign from a visual perspective. It's also, we have some quite dedicated fans. So when doing visual stuff, you can't really change your mind once it's out. It is what it is. But this is probably also the biggest appreciation you can get from someone. They dedicate your skin to you. So our process is probably quite intuitive. As I said, we started with putting some stuff up on a website and to see what happened. And we used a little bit of internet we're just at 99.9 thousand followers right now. We haven't really tried that hard to get, we just posted nice pictures. But then we started selling stores because we needed that. And the one thing I think we do well is prototyping. We prototype a lot, and not only like physical prototype like this, just test things out all the time. And since we have ourselves very much as guides to what we do and what is good, it's very easy to test. You don't need to ask anyone. You can just try it on yourself and your colleagues. And we do that lots and lots and lots. So if there's anything I want to say that it's good to do, is to try things out over and over again. And since we're mostly doing synthesizers and we're mostly sitting in an office doing that, we probably do a pretty decent job of testing them out for a studio environment. But what about live? So we started a band. So we play with our prototypes live in front of a live audience to see how that works. So we can kind of get the live experience before we release it, and somebody who needs to make a living touring finds out how it is. Plus it's really fun to play. So we've been doing this for quite some time now. Played at different situations. If I should try to say what helped us do what we've done, I think it's a good thing living in Stockholm, Sweden, having long, dark, cold winters. You can kind of only work or drink or both. It's good for concentration. Here it feels, I heard that the beach is just down the street and it's warm and it seems to be a lot of distraction. We have that in summer only. So we have several good months of work each year. Then I think that the climate in Sweden is pretty good. We have well-educated people that didn't have to pay to get educated. We have some parts of the mixed economy still around. So I think that's helpful. Yeah, then try stuff over and over and over and over. Now, I mean, this depends on what you do, but I think it's important to realize that what we are doing is tools. Even if the tool in itself can be a piece of art, we're doing the stuff that somebody else should be doing this with. But I think it's really important how you build the tool, because depending on how you build it, people will get different results. So we think a lot about the workflow and how you interact with what we do. And I think that has a big impact on this process when it actually becomes music. And I think here is when the magic kind of happens. I mean, I'm so impressed with what people do with the stuff we created. I could never have imagined the ways our things are being used. And that's really, really fun to see. I mean, that makes it definitely worthwhile doing it. So, yeah. Thanks. That was the presentation. If there's questions, if we have time for that, I think that's... Yes. Yes. We have a 3D printer, a laser cutter for physical prototypes. We use that a lot. And for audio, we prototype with combining different other things. Is that what you meant? Yeah. I mean, we basically put stuff together out of other things, plus have a machine park to be able to build stuff. OP1, it took super long because we were also doing other stuff in parallel. I'm afraid to say, but it took a long time, several years, which in part was good because the product matured during that. I would want to be able to do things much faster, and now we can do it faster as well. I think probably 1 to 2 years is the maximum project should go. I think 1 year is probably a nice cycle, if possible. But I mean, then if you have production set up, that's always going to take time as well. So it depends on how you measure. Yeah, I'm a programmer. So I was kind of handling the software side. Then there was David Eriksson. He was on the hardware side. Then it was Jens Rudberg. He was kind of in the middle between hardware and software. Jesper Kautoft did all the visual, the ID, the graphical things. Then we did most of the other things together. I worked at a synth company called Electron before. The others worked in advertising and online, and we had quite a bit of knowledge, so we didn't start from scratch. But in terms of roles, it was actually 3 engineers and 1 designer. Yes, and a lot of the people still, most of the people have relations to music. And or games, actually. There's a lot of connections to the gaming scene in Stockholm. I think that's also good for this kind of product, to bring the playfulness. Gaming, computer games.
So when you have a project, you decide, well, your group decide which project you want to do, or is a company the one who goes to the company and says, I need that to do it? Or how do you work?
Most of the projects originates internally, and we just prototype a lot and try them out, and what if like everybody seems to like it, it's probably a good idea, and then we decide to go ahead. Some of the external projects is somebody coming to us asking for us to do a collaboration. We usually say no, but sometimes we say yes.
And what drives you to say yes or no?
I think when there is an interesting angle, it can be the concept, it can be a technology we want to explore, it can be a company we like that we wanted to work with. There needs to be some kind of connection that feels relevant.
Anybody?
Please take it. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So if you were willing to extemporize on the relationship between your sex or gender and what you're doing, would you do that, and could you do that?
We have huge problems with that. I mean, as you saw in the first picture, we were 5 male persons. It's super tricky to get good female engineers. I've been trying that for a long time.
Yes, that is one question, but your own relationship between, what do you feel? What makes it such a male pursuit?
How do you mean? I think it's I think if I can answer, and then you can ask again. I think we would want to be a 50-50 company. Then I think the outcome of the company would feel quite gender neutral. At least that's our thought process, because from what we've seen so far, our customers are quite like us. So that makes it quite easy to fix. We just need to be a bit more diverse internally. Was that the question?
Well, as I said, what I find interesting is whether you, when you look at yourself, and your modes of thinking and your ambition, do you feel that has something to do with your sex?
No, I think music is gender agnostic. Both listening to music and creating music.
How about the customers, the people? I mean, do you know about the kind of gender balance or bias?
Yeah, and it's quite similar to what we are internally. So it's
Yes.
predominantly male.
Do we have more questions, or we can go through the next step?